scandal. In an interview for Polish TV just over 3 years ago, Mariola said that in 2002 and 2003, airplanes hired by the CIA landed at the airport a total of 6 times.
They didn't keep to any particular schedule. They looked exactly like passenger flights. The navigation system had information about them. We were duty-bound to allow them to land. And that's what we did.
Przewodnicka was forced to resign after her television appearance. But the Polish government simply ignored her scandalous revelations. And news of the country's leaders helping the Americans in their not altogether legal operations sparked much less scandal inside the country than it did abroad.
If they prove that there were such prisons in Poland, I'd say that will even be a good thing, because all that was done for the sake of Polish-American cooperation. The question, though, is how Poland will benefit from that.
Whether they existed or not is anyone's guess. But I'd be happy to know there were none.
Yes, I've heard about those prisons, but clearly that's how they want to distract Poles from issues that really matter.
Although the government chose to ignore the problem, several Polish journalists launched investigations of their own. Adam Krzykowski is among them. The reporter and editor of the TVP Info channel has gained access to the logs of incoming flights at Szymiany Airport. He has no doubt that Poland was one of the main participants in the CIA secret prisons project.
It all came to light by chance, after we got hold of several secret documents. Significantly, they had not been registered at Szymiany Airport. It followed from the records that CIA airplanes had landed in Polish territory. The flights had what was described as government status. This means that the country's leaders must have known about them.
Adam investigated the affair with Mariusz Kowalewski from the Polish newspaper. They visited Stary Kakuta several times.
This is the airport at Szymiany right here. Over there you can see Nowe Kakuty, and this is what you're looking for, Stary Kakuty, over here.
As our crew filmed Kowalewski's interview, we ourselves came under the spotlight. Security guards inside a passing cross-country vehicle meticulously filmed what we were doing.
Gentlemen, your papers, please.
Security there is still tight, even though it's thought the secret prisons program in Eastern Europe was terminated 5 years ago. Mariusz is certain that without the revelations by Przewodnicka, all evidence pointing to Poland's underground cooperation with the United States would still be nothing but circumstantial. US Special Services used very smart methods to disguise their operations to transport terror suspects. The fact that they used private airplanes meant that they didn't have to report to the official departments of the various countries as they passed through their airspace. A military aircraft needs many permits before crossing a border, but a civilian plane is different. You need far less authorization. The airplanes used, mostly light Gulfstreams, were hired from front organizations. The most graphic example is that of the Premier Executive Company, which was uncovered by American journalists. An email address was the only information the firm was ready to divulge. The company used only 2 airplanes, which belonged to Stephen Express, a firm registered in Tennessee at a non-existent address. The company was later handed over to Devon Holding and Leasing, a firm employing just 1 person, who was a lawyer. One of the airports where those planes landed was the one where Mariola Przewodnicka was a manager.
Airport staff serviced the airplanes. They inspected and fueled them, but there was no customs examination. All that was surrounded by secrecy. Cars with tinted windows would drive up to the airplanes, but there was no way of knowing who was inside.
Vytautas Podsūnas, a Lithuanian counterintelligence officer, investigated the payment of a considerable amount of money that the US State Department had reportedly given to the opposition in Belarus. Vytautas discovered that the money never reached Minsk. Instead, it went on to the Baltic countries. In fact, it could have been used to fund the illegal prisons. The man leading the parliamentary inquiry into his death maintained that Podsjunas uncovered the truth.
There is no denying that some fine points show that it might well have happened.
The agent's persistence cost him his career and later his life. Podsjunas had been posted to the Lithuanian embassy in neighboring Belarus, but he continued his investigation there, meeting with American diplomats. But late in the summer of 2006, the counterintelligence officer's body was found near a hotel in the city of Brest in Belarus. Officially, Podsjunas' death was recorded as an accident, saying he fell out of an upper floor window. But other explanations for his death cropped up later, during a heated debate in the Lithuanian parliament over the secret CIA prisons. The anti-Vilay crisis became a useful tool for political infighting.
We have two options open to us. One is to bury our heads in the sand in the belief that nobody can see our behinds. Yes, they can. We can't say that if we found no chained captive, don't pester us anymore. The other option is to make an objective assessment of the situation, without trying to figure out mathematically how many Muhammadovs or Ibrahimos were here. We must be frank about whether we were a truly independent state, where somebody can do as they like.
It's vital for the current president, Dalia Grybauskaite, to vindicate her country in European eyes. To that end, she needs to make a symbolic political sacrifice. Grybauskaite is demanding the return from the embassy in Georgia of Mieczysław Rinkus, the ex-head of the State Security Department, who was thought to be in charge of the construction of the anti-Vilay prison.
It's important for Lithuania to face its mistakes with an open mind. What is even more important is to make conclusions about whether a government department can be a state within the state, and whether 2 or 3 state security officials can decide the country's destiny without regard for the law and in excess of their powers. I want to have answers to those questions.
The Lithuanian journalist and political scientist Artūras Račas feels that the United States, the #1 country in NATO, deployed its secret prisons in Eastern Europe for more than just tactical reasons. The new members of the Atlantic Alliance demonstrated their loyalty to the United States by harboring covert CIA installations. But it's paid no dividends. Such mutually disadvantageous cooperation is unlikely in the future.
In the future, nobody will have even a possibility to do what happened. I mean that nobody will have enough power to order other state institutions not to obey the law. Nobody will have the power to do some really very important decisions without knowledge of the parliament and of the president.
Mariola Przewlocka, the facilities manager at Szymanski Airport in Poland, where CIA-rented airplanes landed, was forced to resign following her scandalous TV interview and her testimony before the European Parliament. She has still not found another job. The reporter Mariusz Kowalewski became famous as a result of his investigation. He's a well-known figure in the country, and his articles appear in many European publications. Rolandas Paksas, the ex-Lithuanian president who refused to give permission to construct a secret prison, now leads an opposition party. He maintains that his refusal to allow the deployment of CIA prisons on Lithuanian territory cost him his post, but will benefit him at the next parliamentary election. Vilnius is a capital, but it's also a compact city. The parliament building is in the main street. The heated debate over the secret prisons has not subsided to this day. The building nearby contained state archives, but only 20 years ago, these walls inspired terror. At that time, it housed the KGB's Lithuanian branch. A secret prison of the omnipotent special service existed in the basement.
And now I want you to show the first place for arrested people. So, please, aware, you can see 2 small rooms. And these rooms were called boxes. So the prisoner could spend here a few hours while officer examined their documents. The second place for them, search room. Here. So things like belts, shoelaces could be taken from them.
This ominous place has since been turned into a museum. Tickets cost €2. A brief tour sheds light on the lives of inmates and the interrogation practices involved in what was then called the limited use of force and psychological pressure.
So here you can see two the same rooms, and the prisoner could stand on the round platform in the middle, or he could stand working in cold water, and during winter time it could be only ice. And there were some prisoners who spent here even 3 days, and who spent about 5 days.
The young Lithuanians who visit the museum regard it as a symbol of the distant past in their country's history. They find it incredible that it was only recently that a secret prison existed 20 kilometers from Vilnius. And they're not convinced that the records of what really happened in the small town of Antaville will be declassified anytime soon, keeping the truth under wraps.